The year is 1850, and the United States has recently acquired a large amount of land in the West. This land was surrendered as a result of the Mexican War. California is a fertile land, and the 1849 gold rush created a surge in its population and economy. Many felt California was already ready for statehood, and a state constitution was already drafted, which prohibited slavery. Well, abolitionists and free soilers were becoming more vocal. 2 years previously, David Wilmot tacked on an amendment to an appropriation bill prohibiting slavery in newly acquired territories. Known as the Wilmot Proviso, it continued to hang over Congress, raising temperatures considerably. The president is Zachary Taylor, a military hero with no political ties or experience. Although he is a Southerner and a slaveholder himself, he believes slavery is impractical in the new territories. The land is not suitable for the plantation-style agriculture that requires slavery. There is no need for a Wilmot Proviso. The matter would be decided by popular sovereignty, as it already had in California. Hardline Southerners, led by John Calhoun, believed that unless the 3630 parallel that divided slave and free states was extended to the new territories, the balance of power between North and South could not be maintained. Secession would be inevitable. You are Henry Clay. As the chief architect of the Missouri Compromise, it falls upon you to marshal the forces of reason and prevent secession. Stepping into Clay's shoes, you must cobble together a combination of proposals that will settle the issue of the new territories and leave both the North and the South reasonably satisfied. You must navigate your legislation through Congress and overcome a potential veto. You will engage politicians, journalists, and businessmen seeking their aid, minimizing their harm. You are not alone. Others will be launching legislation, and if it beats you to the punch, your efforts are in vain. All the while, you must keep an eye on the level of Southern agitation. If it gets too high, it's over. It's civil war. Well, what I'd like to do in this video is play through the first few moves just to give a feel for how the game is played. I'll explain the rules as they come up. It's a solitaire game. There are 3 playing areas in which may be arranged in any manner that's more convenient for you. Here on the congressional board, you will throughout the game be using your actions to move the bills you want passed through the legislative labyrinth and brought to a vote. First the Senate, then the House. You will also be using actions to block bills you don't want passed. At the start of the game, a few bills are already in play. A bill which would give Utah the vote is already on the floor. This bill would give Utah the entire acquired territories and create a new state of Desiree. It is being considered on the House floor, but it's not a great threat to pass into law, as most believe the entire territory is too large for a single state. There are many abbreviations used in this game. Bill counters are marked with an alpha code. The content of each bill, along with its associated alpha code, are explained on the legislative checklist. Now, B4 represents the bill to create the state of Desiree. Well, there's a bill to create two new states in New Mexico and Utah. Now, currently, it's hung up in the Territories Committee, and these block counters will have to be removed before it can proceed. There's also a bill that defines the Texas boundary. That's this one, T3. It's in the calendar and will eventually move in the course of play. Here we have the various disposition tracks. They will move up and down during the course of play. Southern agitation begins at 5. Northern agitation begins at 2. Clay support and Western support each begin at 0. During the course of play, you will be using your actions to reduce Southern and Northern agitation and to increase Clay and Western support. Now, these boxes show the level of support for individual bills. That support will be modified during the course of play. Again, you use your actions to modify them in your favor. Now, you only get 2 actions each turn, so you have to decide where they are most needed. You need to make space for a political runway. As character cards are drawn from the draw pile each turn, they are placed on the runway, pushing cards already there ahead 1 space. There needs to be space for 5 cards on the runway. The game begins with Henry Foote on the 3rd space. Even before Clay became involved, Foote was advocating compromise. He was a senator from Mississippi, a strong supporter of slavery, and himself a slaveholder. However, he was fearful that the Northern majority would impose measures that would force the South to secede, and he feared the consequences. He therefore sought alternatives. He was instrumental in creating the Committee of 13, whose task it was to deal with the issue of slavery. Before play begins, you must create a package of bills which you will eventually present to Congress. Now, you need to include a Class A bill to deal with California and a Class B bill to deal with the rest of the New Mexico territories. But Clay understood that the admission of California as a free state was almost inevitable. So he needed to combine that with a Class B bill that would be acceptable to the South. Now, extending the 3630 parallel to the border, that's Bill B5, would be the most satisfactory to the South. But he would face fierce opposition from Northern radicals who ultimately wanted no extension of slavery. Well, Clay chose to avoid the issue altogether. He chose with Bill B3, which makes no mention of slavery. Now, bills involving fugitive slave laws, slave trade, tariffs, land grants to railroads, and Texas debt can help you pick up supporters along the way. They can also help balance the regional bias of your package. For this game, I'm going to adopt Clay's historical plan, which includes admitting California as a free state and creating territories of New Mexico and Utah with no mention of slavery. Now, he also threw in a stronger fugitive slave law, the elimination of slave trade in the District of Columbia, and land grants to the Illinois Central Railroad, and the assumption of Texas debt. Before starting the first turn, You must draw from the deck to fill the positions 1 and 2 on the political runway with character cards. Now, if an event card turns up, you just put that aside and reshuffle it into the deck after you've filled the runway. There are two types of cards in the deck: event cards and character cards. The effects of event cards are resolved immediately. The card is then either placed in the discard pile or removed from the game. Character cards are placed on the runway and remain there, performing their standing actions. That's the yellow strip that you see, until they are dealt with by engaging them. That's the blue strip. Or they are pushed off the edge by the character behind them or by an event. This is called sliding, and when this happens, the slide effect in the red strip is resolved. The consequences are usually not good. Politicians don't like to be ignored. We're ready to start. Each turn begins by drawing a card from the draw pile. We've gotten a character card. It goes in the first space. If the first space is occupied, it pushes the card one position to the right, which in turn pushes the card in front of it, and so on down the line until the card lands on an empty space. If the card gets pushed off the track, it slides off the runway. The second phase of each turn is bill movement. The green strip on the drawn card tells you which bills currently on the congressional board move forward a space, or in some cases are blocked. The instructions are only executed if they fall within the indicated die roll range. In this case, a die roll of 1 to 4 is needed to make the bills move. We roll a 1, so we execute bill movement as indicated. The first two bills are in bold type, which means that if they are not already on the board, they are introduced. They are both preceded by the letter S, which means they are introduced to the Senate. We use the default committee table to determine which committee they will begin in. D2 is a bill to end slavery in the District of Columbia. We roll a 4, it goes to the Senate District Committee. B1 is the Wilmot Proviso. We get a 6, it goes to the Committee of 13. They both get 2 block counters. The other bill indicated on the green strip is a simple instruction to move E1. E1 is not in play, so the instruction is ignored. In the third phase of each turn, each character on the political runway performs his standing action. You will find that each character is pushing his own personal agenda, which is often at odds with yours. We start with the card furthest to your right and move down. So, let's see what we have here. Henry Foote, a Whig senator from Mississippi. Known for his sharp tongue and pugnacious personality, his strident support for compromise was an unexpected mixed blessing. You never know what you're going to get with Foot. He is capable of increasing the agitation levels on both the North and the South, simply by getting under people's skin. We roll a die, so Southern agitation goes up one level on the disposition track. The marker is moved from 5 to 6.
Go.
Next we have Horace Greeley, who is an influential newspaper editor from New York. One day he writes an editorial supporting Clay. The next he'll come out in favor of Taylor. He can help you or he can hurt you. We roll a 4, which is NE, that's no effect. Well, I guess he's straddling the fence for now.
Oh.
Hannibal Hamlin. He would eventually gravitate to the new Republican Party and become vice president during Lincoln's first term. But for now, he's a Democratic senator from the state of Maine. On the one hand, he opposes the extension of slavery, and on the other hand, he is committed to preserving the Union. So he won't back radical measures like the Wilmot Proviso, but is comfortable with popular sovereignty, which is generally the party line for Northern Democrats. We roll a 4 again, which results in the support of B5 being reduced. The extension of the 3630 parallel to California drops one level. So we go to the disposition board and move the counter marked B5 from -5 to -6.
Start. Go.
Salmon Chase is a senator from Ohio aligned with the Free Soiler Party. He would later become a thorny and antagonistic member of Lincoln's cabinet. Well, he's a thorny member of the Senate as well. He increases Southern agitation with his inflammatory rhetoric and increases Northern agitation with his strident promotion of anti-slavery ideals. He's going to be a problem for you, and you need to get him off the runway. We roll a 6, and B5 goes down once again, and Northern agitation goes up 2. Northern agitation goes from 2 to 4. And B5 goes from -6 to -7. The anti-slavery people really don't want any extension of the 3630 parallel. If this bill was part of your plan, it would probably be an early setback. You are a bit safer backing B3. In the 4th phase of each turn, you get a chance to perform your 2 actions and any ally actions that may be available to you. Now, this card is really just a player aid. You can probably dispense with it as you become familiar with the game. Anyway, your available actions are: number 1, you can engage a character on the political runway. Second, you can influence the disposition tracks. Third, you can move bills on the congressional board. Or you can modify the support of a specific bill. And then there's a few other special actions, which I won't go into yet right now. Now, they can be done in any order and can be repeated if desired. But you can only do 2 actions. So where should we start? You need to get your package of bills introduced to the Senate and moving toward a vote. But it's too early to worry about that now. When you do introduce your plan, Clay's support should be at least +1. And remember, and you're going to have to use both of your actions for 2 straight turns to make your delivery to the Senate. Now imagine a time before movie stars or sports heroes. These were the celebrities of their day. When Clay delivered his plan to the Senate, not only the gallery, but the halls and stairways of the Capitol were packed with spectators hanging on his every word. It took 2 days to deliver his plan, and that's why you need to use 2 complete turns to deliver it. It was a major event. So you should wait for the runway to be relatively clear of hostile characters that you're not going to be able to respond to. In addition, Clay and Western support should be brought up to levels that at least offset the regional agitation levels. And support of individual bills in your plan should be moved toward positive territory. The first decision you have to make is whether to seek Foote as an ally. Now, he can cause you trouble, but he's very helpful in getting your package through the Committee of 13 and out onto the floor. So I think we're going to go for him. To engage a character, you consult the blue strip on the character card and roll the die. We roll a 2, which is no effect. Well, we wanted to use our second action to deal with Salmon Chase, but we're determined to get control of Foote. We don't want him sliding off the edge because he has a triple whammy of increasing both Northern and agitation and reducing Western support. So you're allowed to perform the same action twice on your turn. So we're going to roll again. This time we roll a 5, and that results in a P/A, which means a potential ally. I use a lot of abbreviations in this game on the cards. All the abbreviations are listed in the rule book, which will help until you get used to them. In any case, a potential ally means you can either take him as an ally or put the card in the discard pile. But we want Foote as an ally, so we're going to take him. That's the end of the first turn. And we begin the second turn by drawing the top card on the draw pile. This time, we draw an event card. When you draw an event card, all the cards shift to the right 1 space. They don't have to be pushed. Stronger fugitive slave laws are demanded. Increasingly, local officials in the North ignore or outright refuse to enforce the fugitive slave law of 1793. Southerners are demanding a stronger law that would enforce local officials to cooperate. Now, if F1 is not on the board, F1 is a bill calling for stronger fugitive slave laws. Place it in the Senate Judiciary space with 2 block counters. Well, it's not on the board. Now, this event has a second effect. It's saying that we're supposed to roll a die, and if the die roll is greater than Southern agitation, then both support for the fugitive slave laws will go up. But we don't need to roll a die because Southern agitation is at a 6, so we can't get a die roll that's higher than that. So the indicated effects of this event. Support for bill F1 goes from -3 to -1, and support for bill F2 goes from 0 to 1.
Go.
The other effect of the event is that you're instructed to move bill F1. Now, bill F1 has a block counter on it, so what you do instead is remove the block counter, taking it from F1. When the instruction comes from an event, you don't need to roll, even though it's in a committee. Before this event card is either discarded or removed from the game, we need to consult the green line for bill movement. We roll a 5, so there is no bill movement. The R in parentheses in the upper left-hand corner indicates the card is removed from the game. Cards in the discard pile get shuffled back into the deck and will appear again, but this event will not happen again. Phase 2. We check on standing actions. First up, Horace Greeley. We roll a 2. So support for the Taylor plan goes up 1. The Taylor plan moves from 2 to 3.
Shouldn't have did that.
Now, we don't want Taylor's plan to pass. It could cause a significant spike in Southern agitation. So that's yet another problem we have to deal with. Next, Hannibal Hamlin. We roll a 6. No effect. Uh-oh. Salmon Chase is next. We roll a 3. This time, he moves Southern agitation up 2. If any of the listed bills were on the Senate floor, he would place a block counter on them. F1 is in committee, not on the floor. Southern agitation moves from 6 to 8. That's the last of the standing orders. We can now perform our actions. Well, Chase is killing us. Both Northern and Southern agitation are higher than they should be. So we'll use our first action to deal with him. We engage him and consult the blue strip. We roll a 4. The result is no effect, but it is followed by DS in parentheses, which means it goes to the discard pile. And that is what we wanted. Now, an R in parentheses result would have been better, since that would have removed him from the game. But we're happy with the discard. Chase goes to the discard pile. Southern agitation is dangerously high. So we'll use our second action to try to reduce it. We need a roll of 3 to 6. We roll a 5. Southern agitation goes from 8 to 7. Well, we've used our 2 actions, but we're not done. Now we have an ally. Allies can perform 1 action each turn. The available actions are shown in the gray area on the card. Foote has 3 possible actions listed. We see that number 2 allows him to engage any Northern Democrat or Southern Whig, but it can backfire. If you roll a 1 or 2, he increases the agitation level in the region of the character that he's engaging. Sparkling personality, no doubt. Well, Hannibal Hamlin is a Northern Democrat. So we decide to have Foot engage him. Now the P in this gray section, ally section, means that he's a permanent ally and will remain after the action is finished. Again, we consult the blue strip on the Hamlin's card to engage him. We roll a 2. The result is no effect. So not only have we not budged Hamlin, but because a 2 was rolled, Northern Agitation goes up 1. Northern Agitation goes from 4 to 5. Now the 5 space is marked S+1. This means that when this level is reached, it triggers Southern Agitation to go up 1 level. It only triggers it once a game, so we mark this space with a blank counter so it won't trigger again if it passes through again. Well, that's the end of the second turn. We begin turn 3 by drawing a character card. The first space in the runway is empty, so it is placed there. It doesn't push any of the other cards. We get bill movement on a roll of 1 to 5 on this card. We roll a 5, so we execute bill movement as indicated on the green strip. First, we see the notation CAL, CAL. What this means is that all the bill counters on calendar spaces in both chambers move 1 space. That is the only time bills in the calendar spaces move, when the CAL instruction appears on the bill movement strip. They are not affected by instructions to move otherwise. You cannot move or block them as an action, unless, of course, you have the Speaker of the House as an ally. T3 is in a calendar box, so it moves to the next box. Next, we see the Calhoun plan is preceded by an S, which means it is introduced to the Senate. We consult the default table to determine which committee it lands in. We get a 1, which places it in the Territories Committee. G2 is not yet in play, so we ignore that. F1 is in committee. Bills in committee receiving a green strip instruction to move require a roll of 1 through 6. We roll a 6. F1 has a block counter on it, so we remove it. Finally, there is an instruction to block D2. D2 is in committee, but instructions to block bills in committee do not require a die roll. D2 now has 3 block counters. Now, when a bill in committee gets 3 block counters, it is immediately killed and removed from the board. That ends the bill movement phase. Let's see what standing actions have in store for us. Horace Greeley. We roll a 6. Oh, now he's swung over to our side. Clay's support goes up 1 level. Hannibal Hamlin. We roll a 6 again. No effect. James Mason, a Democratic senator from Virginia. He is chairman of the Senate District Committee. He is a hardline, pro-slavery ally of John Calhoun. If the Clay counter was on the Senate floor, Mason would filibuster. Now, the syntax on the yellow strip is a little complicated. It reads, if CC, that's the clay counter, is on the Senate floor, place 2 block counters on the clay counter. Well, the clay counter is not on the Senate floor, so we continue to read, else we roll a die and execute the result. Well, since he has no bill to attack on the floor, he chooses instead to rile up his Southern colleagues. A roll of 1 to 4 increases Southern agitation. We roll a 5, so it has no effect this turn. These conditional effects use a lot of abbreviations on the cards, and some of the more complex ones are spelled out in English in the back of the rule book. It's time to start our actions. Looking at the disposition board, the agitation levels of both North and South are higher than they should be. We also need to start thinking about moving support of some of our bills into a positive territory. Now, after what happened last turn, we're not going to send Foote after Hamlin. If we look at Foote's third ally action, he can move or block any bill in the Committee of 13. So this turn, we're going to use his action to put a block counter on the B1 counter, the Wilmot Proviso. That's the third block counter on B1, so we've managed to kill the Wilmot Proviso before it can get to the floor. Foote is back in our good graces. As long as Mason is on the political runway, Southern agitation is going to be a problem. So keeping that under control is our immediate concern. We'd like to get Mason off the runway, but using an action to directly influence the disposition track has a better chance of success. We need a roll of 3 through 6. We get a 4. Southern agitation is reduced from 8 to 7. We got Southern agitation to drop, and we could keep trying to do that, but I'd really like to get Mason into the discard pile. So I'm going to engage him as my second action. We need to roll a 5 or a 6. No luck. We roll a 4. Bill D2, the elimination of slavery in the D.C., drops 1 level of support. As chairman of the district committee, Mason is vocal in his opposition to any change in the status of slavery in the District of Columbia. Support for D2 moves from 1 to 0. That ends turn 3. We draw a character card. Mason, who is on the entry space, is pushed to the next space. Since that space is empty, he settles there and does not push the cards in front of him. Let's check the green strip for bill movement. A 1. So we execute the instructions on the strip. First, Cal is on there again, so T1 moves to the next calendar space. Next, we see Calhoun P in bold. Now, the Calhoun plan is already on the board. If the bill in bold is already in play, the instruction is treated as an instruction to move. However, the Calhoun plan is currently in committee, so we need to roll a die of 1 through 6 to move it. We roll a 2. So the Calhoun plan remains in committee with 2 block counters. Next, we see a bold G2 with an S in front of it. A G2 is a bill to reduce tariffs. It generally is supported by the southern farmers. The tariffs are there to help northern industry. They only make everything more expensive for the farmers. Well, we don't need to roll the die for G2 as it automatically goes to the committee box marked Other. Bills go into the Other box with only 1 block counter as the box represents less powerful committees. T2 and B1 are not on the board, so they are ignored. F1 is in committee, so it needs a die roll of 4 through 6 to move. We roll a 4. There are no block counters on F1, so it moves from the Territories Committee to the first calendar box. Oh, we should not have let this happen. Although the stronger tariff laws is part of our plan, we don't want the Senate to vote on it before it considers our package in its entirety. If it passes by itself, it'll spike northern agitation. Standing actions begin with Horace Greeley. A 3. No effect. Hannibal Hamlin. We roll a 2. Now he's going after our bill, B3. We're trying to sneak in Utah and New Mexico with no mention of slavery. But Hamlin doesn't want the slavery issue put off. He supports popular sovereignty. So support for B3 drops 1 level. Support for B3 goes from -4 to -5. James Mason. We roll a 2 again. Southern agitation goes up 1 level. Southern agitation moves from 7 to 8. And Jefferson Davis is a Democratic senator from Mississippi. He's the future president of the Confederacy, so I guess we know where his sympathies lie. Actually, he's a bit more of a gentleman than Mason, and somewhat less problematic to us. We roll a 1. Support for Bill A1 goes down 1 level. Davis steadfastly pursues his quixotic goal of preventing the admission of California as a free state. Support for Bill A1 moves from 5 to 4. Now it's time for our actions. Well, we didn't like Hamlin going after our New Mexico bill, so we're going to try to engage him again. Rather than risk using foot, this time we'll use one of our own actions. We roll the die and check the blue strip for the result. We roll a 6. We get another conditional effect. It reads, if the Clay Plan includes Bill D1, D1 is a bill to end slave trade in the District of Columbia, the support for Bill D1 and Clay support each go up 1 level. Well, D1 is in fact included in our plan. So D1 moves from 3 to 4, and Clay support moves from 1 to 2. The DS in parentheses means that the Hamlin card goes to the discard pile. Southern agitation is still too high, so we need to use our second action to try to reduce it. We need a roll of 3 to 6. We roll a 5. Southern agitation moves from 8 to 7. That's the end of the turn. Draw another card. An event card. All the characters on the runway shift 1 space to the right. Abolitionists in the House unite on a single issue. Well, historically, this didn't actually happen. Well, we stuck it in there as sort of a what-if situation. Now, we roll a die to determine which bill the abolitionists are pushing. We roll a 5. That's E1, a bill to end slave trade across state lines. The card instructs us how to place this bill. E1 is not on the board, so we place it in the second calendar spot. We check the green strip for bill movement. We roll a 2. Movement is executed. Now, F1 is in a calendar box, so the block F1 is not applied. Bills in a calendar box cannot be moved or blocked. They only move on the cal instruction. The bond and the B5 are not on the board and are ignored. Now, the R in parentheses means the card is removed from the game. Standing action. Horace Greeley. A 2. So we check the yellow strip. He shifts support back to Taylor. Support for the Taylor plan goes from 3 to 4. Now, we're going to have to reduce that at some point, but the threat is not immediate, since the Taylor plan has not been introduced. James Mason. We roll a 4. Southern agitation goes up 1 level. Southern agitation moves from 7 to 8. Jefferson Davis. We roll a 2. No effect. It's time for our actions. Now, as long as Davis and Mason are on the runway, we're going to be spending our actions keeping Southern agitation under control. This turn, we're going to try engaging Davis. We roll a 1. No luck. He stands firm for the Calhoun plan. Support for the Calhoun plan goes up by 1, and Clay support goes down 1 level. Support for the Calhoun plan moves from -3 to -2. Clay support moves from 2 to 1. With Southern agitation at 8, we feel compelled to use our second action to try to reduce it. We roll a 6. Southern agitation goes from 8 to 7. Foote can't help us as an ally, as there are no Northern Democrats or Southern Whigs on the board. So the turn ends. We draw a character card. The space is empty, so we place it there. Robert Winthrop, a congressman from Massachusetts, a member of the Whig Party. Speaker of the House in the previous term, He now tries to lead a much divided and disorganized Whig Party in Congress. For now, he will probably do his best to unite the party under President Taylor's leadership. We check the green strip for bill movement. It occurs on a roll of 1 to 5. We roll a 3. The strip contains the cal instruction. All the bills in the calendar boxes move. T3 moves from the calendar to the first box on the House floor. Now, the strip also contains 2 instructions to introduce bills to the House. The default table sends Bill G1, a bill to increase tariffs, to the Ways and Means Committee. And it sends the Taylor Plan to the Territories Committee. Now we need to start watching the Taylor Plan. It also instructs us to move Bill B4. And Bill T3. Okay, standing actions. Horace Greeley. We roll a 3. No effect. James Mason. We roll a 3 again. Southern agitation goes up 1 level. Southern agitation goes from 7 to 8. Jefferson Davis. We roll a 6. Southern agitation increases again. Southern agitation moves from 8 to 9. Now, the 9 space of the Southern agitation track contains the symbol V-1. This means that Southern agitation has reached a level so that Taylor is starting to worry about the real possibility of secession. And maybe he's willing to consider a compromise. So we mark the space 9 to show that it's been triggered. And the presidential veto track goes from 6 to 5. So there's a possibility now that he won't veto. Robert Winthrop. We roll a 3. Move the Taylor Plan. Even though the Taylor Plan is in committee, the move from a character card requires no die roll. So we remove a block counter. Now it's time for our actions. Having both Mason and Davis on the runway is becoming intolerable. So we're going to try engaging George Mason again. We check the blue strip for engagement. We roll a 5. There's no effect, but the DS in parentheses means the card goes to the discard pile, which is exactly what we want. Now that the Taylor Plan is on the congressional board, we have to be concerned about its level of support. We don't want it to pass. So we choose to use our second action to modify support of an individual bill. We must roll the die to determine which bills we play on. We roll a 4. This gives us a choice of any bill. So we choose to modify support for the Taylor Plan from 4 to 3. And that's the end of the turn. We draw an event card. All the characters on the runway shift one space to the right. Horace Greeley slips off the track. When we allow a character to slip off the runway, we look at the red-colored strip on the card and immediately execute the effect. Now this card reads Clay -1. The R in parentheses means the card is removed from the game. Clay support moves from 1 to 0. Mason flexes his muscles. As chairman of the Senate District Committee, he will not easily allow slavery to slip from the District of Columbia. We execute the effect immediately. Now, what this is saying is that if D1 or D2, bills to abolish slave trade or slavery altogether, are in the District of Columbia, if they were in the District Committee, he would put a block counter on it. Well, the box is currently empty, so instead, he places a block counter in the committee box, and if either of those bills are sent to that committee, we immediately place the block counter on the bill, and the bill is killed by virtue of having 3 block counters. As chairman of this district committee, Mason will make it difficult for these bills to reach the Senate floor. Before we remove this card from the game, as indicated by the R in parentheses, we must check the green strip for bill movement. It occurs on a roll of 1 to 4. We roll a 5. There's no bill movement this turn. We go directly to standing actions. There are only 2 characters on the runway, so this shouldn't be too bad. Jefferson Davis. We roll a 1. No effect. Robert Winthrop. We roll a 4. He lends his support to admitting California as a free state. Support for Bill A1 moves from 4 to 5. Now we can perform our 2 actions. Although we got Mason off the runway, we still need to support Southern agitation. So we will use the first of our actions to try to do that. We need a 3 through 6. We roll a 6. Southern agitation moves from 9 to 8. We need to start thinking about getting our plan into play. A Clay support needs to be at least 1, so we're going to use our second action to try to increase Clay support. We need a roll of 3 through 6. We roll a 4. Clay support moves from 0 to 1. That ends the turn. We begin the next turn by drawing a card from the draw pile. We draw a character card. The first space is empty, so we place it there. We've drawn Stephen Douglas, a Democratic senator from Illinois and chairman of the Senate Territories Committee. Known as the Little Giant, he stood just 5'3". He was nevertheless a giant on the Senate floor. He is also a potential ally, and probably the most useful ally we can obtain. He is able to move bills on the Senate floor and the Territories Committee. He can engage any Democrat while at the same time increasing Western support. Having him as an ally will be our top priority. So let's first check the green strip for bill movement. It occurs on a roll of 1 to 5. We roll a 2. The green strip contains the cal notation, so all the bills in the calendar boxes move. It also contains a notation to introduce a bill that would assume the Texas debt and it should be introduced to the Senate. The default table places it in the other committee. The rest of the bill noted on the green strip are not on the board, so we can ignore them. Standing actions. We start with Jefferson Davis. We roll a 5. Southern agitation increases. Southern agitation increases from 8 to 9. Now the 9 space is marked as having previously been triggered, so that effect does not occur again. Robert Winthrop. We roll a 3. Move the Taylor plan. We remove the block counter from the Taylor plan. Stephen Douglas. We roll a 3 again. We are instructed to move Bill R2, but R2 is not on the board, so we ignore this instruction. We can take our actions now. We need to secure Douglas as an ally, so we must engage him by checking the blue strip. We see that he is only a potential ally if Western support is greater than 0. Otherwise, he simply runs off to the discard pile. So before we can engage him, we want to get Western support up to at least 1. We see that Western support is currently 0. So we use an action to attempt to increase it. It needs a roll of 4 through 6. We roll a 1. No success. Determined, we try again. This time we roll a 4. Western support moves from 0 to 1. That's our 2 actions, and Douglas is not yet an ally. But we haven't forgotten our staunch ally, Henry Foote. One of the actions Foote may take as our ally is to engage any Northern Democrat. Douglas is a Northern Democrat, so we will roll the die and consult the blue engagement strip. We roll a 6. On a die roll of 6, the strip reads, if Western support is greater than 0, then Douglas is a potential ally. We gladly take him as an ally. I think that I will end the run-through here. Now that we have Douglas as an ally, we should start thinking about getting our package of bills on the board. Foote can get us through the Committee of 13, and Douglas can help us move it through the Senate floor while also slowing down the fugitive slave bill, which we let slip into play ahead of our plan. Douglas can also deal with the hardline Southern Democrats and keep them off the runway. We should concentrate on increasing Western and Clay support so that it at least offsets the regional agitation levels. And we need to increase support of some of our bills which are currently in negative territory. Of course, we need to keep an eye on the Taylor plan, which is one move away from coming out of committee. We need to try to slow it down or decrease its support. Well, I've spent a lot of time explaining each move, but in actual solo play, the game moves quite quickly. My intention in designing this game was to make the characters and events that surrounded this important legislative battle more vivid and immediate than is possible in a book or a documentary film, and perhaps provide some insight into the workings of our often frustrating representative democracy. I approached the design with no preconceived idea of a game system or a game mechanic that I would fit the historical event into. Rather, I started with all the diverse interactions and crafted mechanics that I thought best simulated each particular one. Although the convention in contemporary game design is to show the narrative and to shove it into the background in order to create a smoother gameplay, I chose to keep the narrative in front. The story comes first. Yet, despite this often intricate detail, the game flows quite smoothly, I think. Thank you for watching this video.